Feminists make cross-industry wage comparisons to make it look like an apples-to-apples comparison to prove wage discrimination where there is none. Wiley Wage Comparisons, 1996, Bellevue, Washington. Recently, a pundit on the radio complained that a woman who answers phones and greets customers in an office makes much less than a man who answers phones and greets customers in a police precinct office. The feminist hacks are getting wily. This is not an apples to oranges comparison, but comparing different varieties of the same class. For example, the common crab apple to Washington State Golden Delicious. All employers are not alike. Making blanket assertions about the entire workforce on the basis of cross-employer comparisons is ingenious. Or is that disingenuous? Or both? Some employers pay more, some pay less. Everybody knows Microsoft pays less than the industry standard wages and salaries, and that an administrative assistant at Big Green is unlikely to take home as much on payday as he or she would at, say, a unionized giant like Boeing or United Parcel Service. Remember, this was 1996. Even belonging to a union doesn't guarantee you'll make the same as someone who belongs to the same union you do, does the same job you do, but works for a different company. A riveter at Chrysler plant can't necessarily expect the same pay as a riveter at a Saturn plant. Feminist shell game. All employers are not alike. Regardless of how you feel about that, the femagogues serve no one except themselves by playing a shell game where the equal pay for equal work P starts out under the shell of each individual employer over here and suddenly shows up under the collective shell of all employers over there. Telling all employers they have to pay the same wage as everyone else for the same job is a form of price control, fixing the price of labor. We've seen what price fixing does to the economies of socialist nations. Indeed, those of us who were old enough to be driving cars in the early 1970s during Richard Nixon's Republican administration saw what fixing gasoline prices did. We all got to sit in long lines at gas stations. We even make it illegal for American companies to cooperate with one another to fix prices. It crowds out competition from smaller and new businesses. Price fixing. Fixing the price of labor would not only set a dangerous precedent for the rest of our economy, but would harm the thousands of new women-owned businesses who, because they're new and small, can't afford to pay the same high wages unionized giants do. Our semi-free market economy recognizes this. Remember, this was 1996. It recognizes that all employers are not alike. Complaining because a 19-year-old woman who works as a receptionist for Nora's 3-year-old accounting temporary agency makes less than a desk sergeant at the local precinct office ignores dozens, if not hundreds, of relevant factors. Does the young receptionist have to face belligerent and potentially dangerous clients on a daily basis? Our desk sergeant does. Does she have to know the law? Our desk sergeant does. Does she need to have a thorough knowledge of how to handle calls from suicidal patrons, of civil emergency procedures, conflict resolution, dispatch? Our desk sergeant does. Times have changed. 30 years ago, a receptionist would have found it difficult, if not impossible, to become a desk sergeant. Even if she made it, she probably would have been paid less than her male coworkers. That was sex discrimination at its most blatant, and today, thanks to the efforts of feminists and equalitarians, it's illegal. All other legitimate factors like years on the job experience, knowledge, and the competence being equal, the legal pay scale is now the same for each individual employer. If Company X pays its receptionists on the same scale regardless of sex, the fact that it may pay less than Company Y pays its receptionists is irrelevant in the context of sex discrimination. In individual cases where employers do discriminate on the basis of sex, concerned parties, feminists, the media, should pinpoint those specific cases and expose them. The whiners who complain of some general fog of discrimination, however, who make wild assertions and glibly speak in glittering generalities about the male backlash against women, put themselves in the same rank as Adolf Hitler and his rants about oppressive Jews. Legal versus illegal discrimination. Everywhere we turn, there is discrimination of one kind or another. Some is illegal, some's not. Some we should do something about, some we can't. Most men still discriminate against fat women. Most women still discriminate against beta males. In response to the former, we have fat feminists who manage to grab the spotlight every once in a while by burning Barbie dolls in public and that sort of thing. In response to the latter, we have wealthy beta males, mild-mannered but creative men who, through hard work and a bit of luck, become rich, like rock stars. Why white knights? Why do you think so many otherwise fair-minded men set aside all rationality and sense of fairness to support the feminist, anti-male, misandristic policies? Because feminist organizations were so successful at recruiting young, physically attractive women. I know there's a lot of people who claim that feminist organizations are comprised entirely of fat, unattractive women who can't get a date, but no, that's not true. We see movie stars, glamorous, beautiful, who, I'm a feminist, and what was that one in England who was men for women? Anyway, because of the women's studies programs on college campuses where the feminist pedagogues teach the most intelligent and privileged young women in the world to believe they are of all the people most oppressed, and where go the girls, the boys amble quickly after. If a hot young babe tells Chip Studmuffin she's oppressed, his little head will nod in agreement. Nod, bounce, march, protest, condemn the cadaver in gross anatomy of leering, if that's what it takes, anything to get her to look at him with wide-eyed admiration and let him find out for himself just how much of that cleavage is for real. So otherwise sensible men stand erect and proudly ejaculate in support of feminism. It's their little heads that are doing the talking.